What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it is already 11:30, but we have finally gotten the Noah Hanifin trade return. This was announced all the way back at 6:44 p.m. Then we heard absolutely nothing from insiders for the following 4 or 5 hours for the most part. But now we have the full return. It is Noah Hanifin heading to the Vegas Golden Knights for Danil Miramanov, a conditional 2025 first-round pick that has an absolutely insane condition, as well as a 2025 third-round pick that becomes a 2025 second. The Vegas Golden Knights win a playoff round. The condition on the 2025 first round pick is if they don't trade their 2025 first before Saturday, then it becomes a 2025 first. But if they do, they can opt to trade that 2025 first to a different team. And then Calgary ends up getting the 2026 first round pick. So they can basically be like, yeah, we're delaying your pick a year. Cry about it. You accepted this condition. A little bit weird, but they are getting that first round pick. It's just the year is kind of up in the air. And in terms of that third round pick, probably like a 50-50 shot that they end up getting that upgrade. So somewhere in between, this deal is basically somewhere in between the 23rd, 24th overall pick. And if you average out the second and third round pick, around the 75th overall pick. So I do think it is kind of underwhelming. First, we're going to look at it from the Vegas Golden Knights perspective. For them, it's fantastic because they only gave up that much assets. In terms of Hanifin, I think we can all agree that he is a solid top pairing guy. Basically, the last 3 years has hovered around a half a point per game guy playing 22, 23 minutes a night. And when looking at his advanced stats have kind of fallen off a little bit this year, but I do think it has a lot to do with the Calgary Flames just not being that good of a team. When you look at him 2 prior years, obviously 2022, Calgary Flames were fantastic, won the goddamn Pacific Division. Last year, competitive team, almost made the playoffs. He was not one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL, but probably a top 50 defenseman in the entire NHL. When looking at it, just a solid two-way guy. And I think he definitely adds to that Vegas Golden Knights blue line that is absolutely insane right now. You got Hanifin, Pietrangelo, Brady McNabb, Shea Theodore, Alec Martinez, and Zach Whitecloud. That is arguably the best overall defense score in the entire NHL. I don't think that's ridiculous. You look at Colorado, even after getting a Sean Walker, they still have like a Jack Johnson in there. Dallas has some weak spots. Ryan Suter's still on the goddamn team. When looking at this, Whitecloud's like your worst goddamn defenseman, and I think that he's still a pretty solid player. So this really rounds them out overall. On top of already getting Noah Hanifin, not Noah Hanifin, obviously got Noah Hanifin in this trade. On top of getting Anthony Mantha yesterday, they're just looking absolutely insane, and they still have money to spend. They still have $4.2 million in deadline cap space, and I think that's even before they potentially put Alec Martinez on LTIR. He's not on LTIR right now. And speaking of Alec Martinez, it makes it possible that they could potentially re-sign Noah Hanifin because Alec Martinez is his contract's expired after this year. $5.25 million comes off the books. So this is not potentially rental. I think they can maybe lock up Noah Hanifin around $6.57 million with the cap going up. Noah Hanifin Alec Martinez out. Sorry, I'm all over the place. It's 11:30. This took forever. I should have had this video done at 7:30. I should be watching a goddamn Oscar movie right now before the Oscars. But this was fantastic work by Kelly McCrimmon. This guy is the most hated general manager in the entire NHL because he plays the system. Don't hate the player, hate the goddamn game. This has been a problem with the NHL, the LTIR. The Tampa Bay Lightning were obviously the first to kind of expose it. He has masterfully done this the last 3 seasons for the most part. This is just Mark Stone. 2022 goes down Ltir February 14th. They would obviously go on to miss the playoffs, so maybe it didn't really work there. But they had Eichel and Pacioretty also out that entire year. Last year, February 11th, 2023, Ltir activated April 18th, game 1 of the goddamn playoffs. And then this year, February 22nd, 2024. So when looking at this tweet I thought really encapsulated it well. You're not mad at Vegas for continually swinging for the fences and landing good to great players. Internally, you're mad at your own GM that your own GM doesn't have the stones to do the same. I 1000% agree with this. The rules have been laid out. It's so clear. Once you're in a safe playoff spot like the Vegas Golden Knights, although they have kind of been playing like shit for the most part, I don't think the St. Louis Blues or anything are going to pick them up, especially after these deals. It makes sense to tell one of your players to relax, that maybe he is dealing with not a serious injury, but could use the rest. Like Mark Stone, even before these LTIR manipulations, he's obviously dealt with injuries. He's a habitual like 10 to 15 game misser before, even in Ottawa for the most part. So to tell one of your star players, yeah, just take the next 2 months off, rest up, still skate on your own, still stay fresh, but you're a veteran. You'll be good by game 1. these teams are just smarter. They're just smarter. I don't know why more general managers don't end up doing this. And now when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, the fact that they're still in it for Gensel, they're still apparently in it for Buchnevich, they're still in it for fucking everybody because they play the system correct. They are fantastic in terms of utilizing their cap space. And now, again, going back, fantastic defense core. Their lines, once Mark Stone gets back, they're going to be very good as well as potentially adding someone. They have a loaded top six once you replace Michael Amadio with Mark Stone. They're going to be disgusting. And they have Aiden Hill in net now. Last year, there was a question mark in net. Now Aiden Hill has like a 923. Logan Thompson's one of the best backups in the entire NHL. I was kind of skeptical on this team last week, but then they go out and get now Noah Hanifin, they get Anthony Manta, and now they are looking like a potential top-tier contender in the Western Conference. Them and the Colorado Avalanche are just playing this game so well at this year's deadline, while other teams just refuse to follow the blueprint of the Vegas Golden Knights. I think this loophole might eventually get covered up if this happens every single year with every single team. But right now, the Vegas Golden Knights are just outthinking you. Now, in terms of the Calgary Flames in their return, again, I do think it is kind of underwhelming, especially when looking at the Elias Lindholm deal, where they got a first-round pick, a 2024 fourth-round pick that can become a third if they make the Western Conference Finals. The Canucks, Yoni Yermo, who is a former third-round pick, Hunter Brustevich, who in my opinion is probably worth like a late first-round pick, definitely a second-round pick at this point, as well as Andrei Kuzmenko, who has been just straight up better than Elias Lindholm last year, who they can probably flip next year for another pick. So although Lindholm definitely a center, maybe has a longer track record than Noah Hanifin, wasn't playing that good this season. So the fact with that deal, I thought the blueprint was at the bare minimum, definitely a first and a second. No conditions, no potential third-round pick. I thought it was going to be a first, a second, and a decent prospect, or a first, second, and third. So the fact that this is the return, it is pretty disappointing in terms of Danila. Well, I'm blanking on his name now. What's his name? Go back to the initial trade. Danila Miramanov. In terms of Danila Miramanov, he's a 6'4" guy. Maybe he has some potential, but he is 26 years old. He has performed at the AHL, so maybe once he finally gets some NHL experience with the Calgary Flames, considering Vegas's defense core is so loaded, maybe he can turn into something. Apparently, they're signing him to a 2-year contract. Now that they don't have Tanev, now that they don't have Hanifin, he's definitely going to get some run with the big boy club, but this isn't an immediate impact guy like an Andrei Kuzmenko. So when looking at this return, it was definitely affected in part because apparently Hanifin's camp was like a little bit tough to deal with throughout this process, considering a team that was trading for Hanifin most likely wanted to at least know that they had a chance to potentially re-sign him down the road. So I'm sure he kind of roadblocked some of the deals by telling teams, yeah, I'm not going to re-sign with you, even though I don't have a full no movement clause like a Vladimir Tarasenko. We saw how bad that went for Ottawa. I don't think that he had a full no movement clause, but with the extension at a guy that's only 26 years old, you definitely wanted to lock him up long term. So that definitely kind of led to this. But I think even with that, the fact that they were not able to get at least a first and a guaranteed second makes it very disappointing, in my opinion. Now, when we're looking at the Calgary Flames overall, they've traded Hanifin, they've traded Tanev, they traded Lindholm, they've traded Toffoli, they traded Zadorov. We can look at, from my boy James Johnson, what the entire Conroy era has looked like thus far. For those 5 guys, they've gotten Sharon Govich, Kuzmenko, 2 firsts, a second, a third, a conditional third that can become a third, another conditional third. I forget what the conditions are on that one. A fourth that can turn into a third from the Canucks. A fifth, Hunter Brustevich. I'm going to botch that name. Idar Suniev. He's actually looking like a pretty promising guy at the college level. Artem Grushnikov. Okay, potential defensive defenseman, bottom pair guy. Yermo, probably not much. Murimanov, probably not much. So when looking at this, it's a decent start. Again, with this whole Flames retool rebuild, it's not going to come from their 2 first-round picks that are probably going to be 25th through 30th. They're nice pieces. All of these are nice pieces for the most part. Sharon Govich has been promising. Kuzmenko, you could probably flip down the line. You're going to get this is what you're going to get your depth from all those picks. What's going to matter for the Flames is them probably sucking the next 2 to 3 years. And like any rebuild, it's going to come down to your top 10 picks. If you can get your next 3 to 4 picks are in the top 10. If you can hit on 3 of those, as well as hit on some of your deep depth picks, the Calgary Flames are in a really good spot. If they whiff on all those picks, it's not going to really matter. You're probably not finding absolute steals in the second round. So it is pretty encouraging. It is a net positive. This is definitely a net positive just from the fact that they were talking about before the season, Hanifin signing like a $7.25 million extension. Lindholm wanted like 8.5. And they were discussing that. They were seriously discussing that. So just from a pure, they ended up getting assets for those guys. They didn't lock down this mid-core. It's a win. It's definitely a win. Do I think they could have got more future assets? Do I think they could have got better future assets? Definitely. But overall, if you're a Calgary Flames fan, the trajectory of this entire franchise finally has direction, and it's definitely a heavy, heavy retool. 2 to 3 years of being below average. I don't expect them to go absolutely ground zero nuclear, especially with the new arena potentially coming down the line. You don't want to like be the worst team in the NHL when that new arena opens up. Trust me. So in looking at that, I think they are heading in the right direction for the Vegas Golden Knights. Just a masterclass. They just know what they're doing. Like it's just deal after deal. Probably tomorrow I'll be making Jake Gensel is a Vegas Golden Knight, and people are gonna be pulling out their goddamn hair. But this is what they do. So overall, I definitely think Vegas wins this individual deal. But if you're both teams, you're feeling pretty good. You're going to bed feeling pretty good. A new era starting for the Flames. Now Vegas a week ago, 2 days ago, 26 hours ago before the Mantha trade was a little bit shaky. They were definitely a tier below maybe Edmonton and Vancouver. Now they're hyped up. They're looking like the goddamn beast in the West. It is a very interesting thing. I can't wait to see what the deadline has in store tomorrow and on Friday. At this point, this is probably going to be the most active day of the deadline, goddamn Wednesday, 2 days before. But it's fun. We'll see what happens then. I'll be seeing you in the next one, I guess.